variables are basically, they're like a placeholder. So if you were sending out, think about a mail merge or party invitations, you'd have a place where the name goes, and then you might have, your name at the bottom, and like you might have to change this up. So party invitations, you always have the same thing, but name goes in the spot, and you want to put in a different name for everything. So by putting a placeholder in those places and using that instead of a specific thing like name, like someone's actual name, you have that generalized version. And variables help us do that because they vary, as the name says, to put other things in them. So you can alternate them throughout your code to put different things in it and have different outcomes based on them. So variables are like a box. It's kind of like a label on a box, and then something goes inside it. So at the moment, it's going to have Renee inside it, and then we might want to update it. If I decided my name is now Jim, I'm going to say my name is Jim, and I'm going to change the thing that is in the name box. So we can also put other things into variables, not just strings. I'm calling strings the green ball, but also things like this blue ball, which is a number. And we're going to see how those things interact differently with the rest of our code. So let's jump back to the code. So we want to store some stuff. So the first thing is I'm going to say name. My name is Renee. So to set a variable, we say the variable name on the left-hand side. There are some rules about what can be a variable name. So it needs to start with a letter. They can be anything, any letters, lowercase, old, capital. Convention to do lowercase and underscore. And then you could have some numbers. You can't start it with a number. I don't think you can have symbols. You can't have symbols because they get angry. So letters and numbers starting with a letter. The convention in Python is to do this format where we use underscores to separate our words. So I'm going to call it name. So we've got name, and then I can just use name where anywhere I wanted it to say Renee. So I can do print name. Now it prints out Renee. I can do print hi. And then name, just like I did earlier, but with Jack. So we had hello, Jack. But now I can just say hi and name. I could change this to be Jack. And then it will just update everything for us. So if you had a bunch of stuff, so here we go. I had name and I had name again. I didn't have to update both lines of code. Really useful if you are writing anything of a substantive size. You don't want to have to be updating all of those things throughout. And some things are just handy to have in memory. Say you were doing something with science and the speed of light. You don't want to have to type the speed of light out several times. You want to have one, what we call a constant. So a kind of variable, the kind of variable that you're not going to go and update, but in Python, they work the same. We don't have separate types for constants. We might just say name if we didn't want someone to change it with capital letters. But we can just set it just like we do a variable. And then you don't have to be writing, the speed of light, the actual number out everywhere, which is long and not fun to have to write. So you can also use your variables, keep adding more lines here. Let's say Renee likes Python. We can use them exactly how we've done everything like we did above. Whoops. Don't want more of that. We can, just like we said earlier, is car in carpet. We can do is E in name. And yes, I do have an E in my name. So we can have that printed out there, just like that. So you can basically do any executable code and put it in here. And you can use name just like you would have done with anything else. And this happens to currently be Renee. But we could also change that back to Jack, who does not have an E in his name. And then we could do things like, just like we did before, we could have Jack, or we could add the variable together. So we've got this plus, just like we did before, like we did with cat plus dog, because this name here is a string. That's we know is in the variable, so we can make super Jack. It's true, Jack does like Python. Thanks for the heads up, Jack. I guess that's why you're here watching this stream. So we've got our variables that are strings, but what about, let's get another box. Numbers. So I've got a couple numbers. I could have something like this. Number 1 is 5, number 2 is 53. I could print out the numbers. Num 1 times num 2, and just use them like we would use those things. It's like when we were doing it manually, like a calculator. And, you know, we could use those numbers over and over again. And then when we change the numbers, then it's just updates the calculation for us. So we don't have to keep typing those throughout. Imagine if we'd had 64 and 53 in here, and we'd use them a lot of times. So like I was saying with the speed of light, we don't want to have to be doing that, updating all of those places. So it's great to define all your things as variables and then just update the variable if you change what that number is.